Accessing Agent Files. Brian Sovryn. Early 21st century anarchist. Creator and host of the podcast Sovryn Tech. By the year 2021, the show would be instrumental in the downfall of various conservative ideologies in the government, helping usher in an incredible time.
Hey, want to take a walk on the wild side and experience the bleeding edge of technology? Then get ready, because it doesn't get much more edgy than this. You're in for a wild ride. You're listening to Sovryn Tech with your host, the man in triple black, the Golden Stallion of the tech world, Brian Sovryn. He's got a huge brain. And now here's Brian.
That's right, the Golden Stallion, the man of tomorrow, Dr. Brian Sovryn. Oh boy.
You're not a real doctor.
But you know
Dr.
what?
Phil is more of a doctor than you are.
Oh, bull. I'll tell you.
At least he has a real PhD.
And doing what with it? At least I'm doing something good. But I got to tell you, this week, almost every libertarian, it seemed like, or celebritarian, was playing Dr. Phil this week. It was ridiculous.
Yeah, I noticed that too.
Yeah.
Well, you know, the thing about Dr. Phil is everybody says, oh, he's not a real doctor, but he actually is. He has a PhD in psychology from like a legit university. No. You, on the other hand, now...
I was told it's what you do with it. It's not what...
Now, let me just say first, I'm not trying to antagonize you, because your knowledge of the Bible and your knowledge of comparative religion is second to none. Like, if you actually had to defend a PhD thesis in front of an academic committee, you could probably do it, and you've probably put in independent research enough to fill at least one PhD thesis over your years studying religion informally. But suffice it to say, you purchased your doctorate of divinity online for $30 from the Universal Life Church, and the paper it was delivered on was like, it looks like a bar mitzvah invitation. Like, it's this cheesy paper.
Oh, hold on. No. My bar mitzvah invitation was on fine bone. What was it? The color was bone and. No, hell, I can't remember. Anyway, it was very classy. Well,
would that we were all so lucky, huh?
Fortunately, I have a real doctor with me. Of course, considering what my doctorate is in, it's BS all the way down, that being a doctorate of divinity.
Yeah,
so,
it's kind of like having a doctorate in phrenology or something.
Yeah, it's a BS and BS, and I'll run with it. So if anyone ever wants to accuse me of making a mockery of institutions, hierarchies, authority, and religion, I stand accused. Guilty as charged.
My undergraduate degree is a Bachelor of Science in Biological Sciences. So you might say I also have a BS and BS. See, I can do anything you can do. But I should just stop competing with the men and just be a woman.
I am competing with you. I am trying to measure up to you. Make no mistake. Though I really do appreciate you saying, recognizing my skill in the area that I decided to try and grab some title from.
Well, you do. I mean, you've taught me a lot about this bullshit area of life, which, I mean, aside from being very entertaining, it helps deconstruct it, because if you understand the arguments that the theists give, you can more effectively dismantle them.
That's right. Yeah, I agree. And actually, very recently, in fact, we were talking about this tonight over dinner. I discussed that really, like any of the remaining spooks or areas of unexplainability that I consider, or, the inexplicableness within the Bible, I feel I've pretty much wiped out. That includes the very first verse in the beginning. I used to give them credit. I used to give the Bible credit for getting it half right, that there was a beginning, but now I'm inclined to believe there was no beginning to the universe. Which I've talked about in Sovryn Tech in the past before. There's science to back it up. Universities in Canada, they've talked about it. And also another thing I've talked about in Sovryn Tech, which was the statue, the dream that Nebuchadnezzar has in the book of Daniel. So, but both of those, I've got them figured out. So anyway. But that's besides the point. Anyway, for those that don't know, though I imagine anybody listening to this show does, that is the voice, of course, of the lovely and hyper-intelligent Dr. Stephanie Murphy. Thank you so much for being on as usual.
Hello, thank you.
Yeah. So,
are you experiencing weird pins and needles?
No.
Okay, just checking.
Yeah, maybe listen after the credits
podcast
to find out about that. So we had promised that we would do a wrap-up of Liberty Forum. And so
when did we promise that?
Or maybe I'd promised that.
I think we did, but I think we did like the last time I was on your show, but
yeah,
I'm a little hazy on it, so I just wanted a reminder.
Yeah, regardless, we're doing it. Here it is. And so let's talk about Liberty Forum. Now, of course, for those that don't know, Liberty Forum is one of two, now there's like 3 or 4, I guess, maybe 5. I don't know. There's so many. It's one of the premier events. Let's just put it that way without going into numbers. It's one of the premier events that the Free State Project, which you and I, Stephanie, are both participants of. That doesn't mean that we are necessarily totally agree with the Free State Project or whatever in various ways.
Oh man, that's a whole subject we could get into.
Yeah,
let's talk about that.
Okay, well, let's get into that, but I just want to finish up with Liberty Forum here.
Yeah, sure.
And this is my, it's one that's held, and it's often considered to be more of the minarchist event. Minarchism being limited government, as where anarchism is no government. And, a lot of speakers, they'll get a lot more mainstream people, as to where PorcFest will often have some, perhaps your more far out thinkers. Though not that I know on any of this, because I don't think I've ever really caught a talk at any of these events. I've never really gone to, I saw a couple at PorcFest, and I've given talks at these events, or not at I've given talks for Alt Expo, which is a
Alt Expo is its own animal. Right.
Alt Expo is this side project of these events, be it PorcFest.
Were you going to say sideshow?
We could call it a sideshow.
No, it's
but
actually
it's not a shit show.
No, it's not. It's
No.
actually very well organized, very professionally done.
Yeah.
If I ever go to talks at these things, it's usually Alt Expo because they just put on a better program and they don't even charge for it.
Yeah,
like you could show up at the same hotel or the same campground in the case of Rogers,
right,
not buy a ticket to the official event and be entertained all day by Alt Expo talks.
Yeah, and this is commonplace for any kind of conference or event. It doesn't have to be Liberty-wise. The Game Developers Conference, there's side conferences that happen the same week that you can go to, where usually most of the genuinely interesting stuff gets brought up. So not an uncommon thing, to occur.
Yeah, their whole thing is like exploring the alternatives.
Yeah.
So whatever that is, whatever the Free State Project official won't touch. I mean, they probably think they're outside the mainstream, but Alt Expo is just like beyond that.
Yeah. Well, I love it.
I do too. I don't know how they do it on such a shoestring budget. I mean, it's organized by two guys, Nick Ford and Jack Shimmick. And, well, let's just say Nick Ford has a blog called Abolish Work.
He's a sweetheart.
He is. I really like Nick, actually.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying, like, it's not as though he is independently wealthy and he has nothing to do except organize Alt Expo. Like,
right.
I'm pretty sure he has like a day job or something, and he's kind of a young guy. And Jack Shimmick is, I don't think he is independently wealthy either. So I don't know how
he hides it well.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's another topic we should talk about. But I don't know how they pull it together. I guess they get donations. I think I remember throwing like $10 or $20 bills in the jar a couple of times during Alt Expo, but not every time, I admit.
Right.
Even though I like the event. And so I don't know how they managed to pull it together.
Yeah.
But somehow they do. To their credit, they've been going for like 8 years, and that's really cool.
Yeah. No, it is. I'm glad it's there because it gives voice to a lot of the more forward-thinking aspects of Liberty, in my opinion. So I really appreciate it. But anyway,
me too.
Yeah. So Liberty Forum gets held every year in winter on purpose. And it's been in February in the past. This year is the beginning of March.
Yeah, it's always February, March, so it's like the cusp of winter/spring.
Right.
But there's usually snow on the ground when Liberty Forum happens.
Yeah, so, and I don't know if they moved it this year to not interfere with Jackfest or...
Jackfest?
Jackfest.
That's in August, isn't it?
When's the Jackalope?
The Jackalope Freedom Festival, aka Jackfest.
Yeah, in Arizona has been Ernie Hancock.
No, that's by Alma.
That's by
Alma? That's Alma Summer, yeah.
Oh, I thought Ernie was all okay.
So Ernie had the
Bitcoin
Summit in Phoenix.
Yep, he had
which was in March, and he usually has what's it called? He usually has some kind of festival in like February, March, and it's usually like the same weekend as the Liberty Forum.
See, I thought that was Jackfest.
No, you're confusing.
Okay.
Yeah. Jackfest
Gotcha.
is in August. Freedom Summit, that's what it was called. And this year it was the Bitcoin Summit instead of Freedom Summit.
Well,
that's Ernie's thing.
For most people, it's a Jackfest year round, but
it's always a Jackfest, libertarian stuff. But I have a theory. I think the timing of these events has something to do with the cost of renting hotel space for a convention. Because, February, like late February, early March, there's really not much going on, and it's not a particularly pretty time of year really anywhere.
Wait a minute. So are you inferring that a bunch of libertarians are going for the cheap seats?
Well, I wasn't going to say it, but no, I mean they're on a budget, right? Like they don't have unlimited Koch brothers money, despite what the media likes to say. This is pretty much all a self-funded thing. But another thing we could talk about maybe is the business model of these things, because PorcFest, Liberty Forum, and the Free State Project in general as an organization, the official Free State Project, like the board of directors and all that shit, they are like a nonprofit organization. And they but they always were running as sort of a nonprofit organization before that, too, before they officially got the 501c3 or 4, I'm not sure which it is. Mm-hmm. They've gotten some kind of official recognition from the government that says you don't have to pay taxes if you do this and lick our boots and apply.
Right.
But before that, their modus operandi, their mode of operation was always sort of as an educational organization. It wasn't to make a profit. And as such, their events they're just parties, but they're not meant to be profitable events. They just basically try to break even and not lose too much money on them, which I think frankly, that's a mistake. Yeah. I think the PorcFest and Liberty Forum should be brands, and they should have CEOs, and maybe not CEOs, but maybe they should be cooperatives or something. But the way it ends up working with the Free State Project is that every year there's a different person in charge, and it's a volunteer, of doing Liberty Forum and PorcFest, and they always pull it off, and they do a great job. Mm-hmm. But by the end of the event, the fucking volunteer is so burned out and so stressed out and so just like losing their mind that they're like, I'm never going to fucking do this again. And they don't get paid for it, or they get paid very, very little, not worth it in terms of money. It's like a labor of love. And people don't last as volunteers if they don't get the recognition and the appreciation. Like you have to pay people somehow, either an appreciation or like they have so much fun doing it that they want to do it again, or you have to pay them with money. And the Free State Project doesn't really do either. And so they end up with a different person organizing it every year. There's continuity issues. They're raising the ticket prices every year. It's expensive to rent these spaces, I know, and it's a hard thing to pull it off, to organize it. But for an organization of libertarians who supposedly understand that the profit motive is the best way to organize businesses to make them sustainable into the future, they sure don't act like it when it comes to those events,
Yeah.
Does anyone else see this?
No, you're right. I mean, for a group of people that claim to have the economics down, and like are just masters of how business should be run, when given the opportunity to run business in a certain way, they don't.
Yeah. Okay. And there were a few years, I think it was post Curtis. So this must have been maybe like 2011 to 2012 or 2013, when Jason Osborne, who is an entrepreneur, he actually owns a large business or co-owns it. I'm not exactly sure, but he is some kind of mucky-muck important position in a large business, which is a collections firm.
Sure.
And he and his wife, Sharon, organized PorcFest for a couple of years in a row. And their plan for PorcFest was basically to to do that, to introduce the profit motive. And he's got a PhD in economics. He's not stupid, and he understands that this is the best way to run an organization like this. So he was trying to have like a long-term plan to make PorcFest a brand and make it have continuity and build it up over several years, maybe like a 5-year plan to become a profitable event. And I don't know what happened exactly. I'm not filled in on the details, but they only organized it for 2 years.
Right.
And then either they got sick of it, they didn't want to do it again, or the 5-year plan fell apart. I don't know exactly what happened, but that didn't take place. So now PorcFest is back to changing organizers every single year, and it looks like it's going to kind of continue to operate on the volunteer kind of basis.
Yeah.
And I just wonder what it could be if it was done differently.
Yeah, I mean, and some people maybe wouldn't want it to be run more efficiently. Maybe some people would, appreciate the chaos that it is. I don't know. I mean,
like when bathrooms aren't working or whatever.
Okay, right. But do most people even remember what they even did during PorcFest?
Well, I do, and you do.
Yeah, I do, but
but that has a lot to do with the fact that we are not consuming any types of intoxicating substances
right
during that week.
Whatever. If they do, they do. That's okay. I'm just saying that, I don't think people care enough. I don't even think they remember. True. I mean, anyway.
Yeah, it's entirely possible. I just think, I haven't talked about this much ever on podcasts because I was embarrassed of it. Confession time. So
Conan O'Brien.
There was a time in my life where I sort of dallianced with going to some BDSM meetups, local meetups. Okay.
Oh boy.
And what I learned out of that whole experience was that I'm not kinky and I'm not into that stuff. And I'll talk about. You just ruined so many people's fantasies and about our lives, Yeah, I don't think we've ever given off the impression that we are into BDSM. I know people, I think people like it when we flirt back and forth and they know we like sex, but not necessarily BDSM, which we don't. We're not into BDSM. I don't know about you, Brian, but I think you would have say you had a similar experience at one time. You maybe dallianced with it a little bit and then you found out that you really weren't into it either. Yeah. So that's the short story of what happened. But the real reason I wanted to talk about that was because I went to this one event that was a BDSM a camp out, almost like PorcFest, but for BDSM. This is the real PorcFest. Oh, God. Well, the stuff I saw there freaked me out so much that I didn't ever want to go back. But the point of that was that it was on a private property. It was on private property, and people camped. And I mean, it was fine, but it was at a private place. And if PorcFest were like that, I just think it could be even cooler than it already is. Yeah. Well, you raise a great point. And it's actually one of the reasons I really like Liberty Forum, or at least why I've liked it every year, is because it's in the hotel. It's, I don't want to use the word controlled environment, but it's in I don't know. It's not as, I don't even know how to describe it. Whatever. I like being in the hotel. It's nice. Okay. You like being in the hotel versus converging on a town? Well, no, I don't know if that's the proper comparison. I like first off, I like winter. Yeah, I'm with you there. Which that's the official story. We talked about the that really this is all about holding an event when you can get it on the cheap. That's the that might be the reality, but the official story is the reason it's done is because we want to it's supposed to be inviting people to sign up for the Free State Project and for them to experience the winter, because somehow every human being on planet Earth, which is just positively inconceivable to me, that there is not one human being on planet Earth that supposedly appreciates, enjoys, and wishes to endure the winter. 7 billion people on this planet, and everybody hates the winter? No. I don't believe it. Well, there's at least one, me.
I love,
who loves it.
One of the things I love about you. I mean, yeah, I love the winter too.
I think it's peer pressure, and like you said, it's a lifestyle obsession where everybody wants to say, "Oh, look at me, I'm living the life. I never have to deal with cold weather." Isn't that great? Because everybody hates cold weather, and like you said, it's just this thing where everybody knows that they can always talk about the weather if they have nothing else to talk about, and so it becomes this immediate status symbol if you always have good weather where you are and you can afford to be in a place like that, I guess.
Yeah, this has to stop, okay? Because this is intellectual laziness, lack of originality. You know, I'm not saying small talk's a bad thing or whatever, but just about any, not that I've really caught these talks, but most of the ones that I've ever seen online later on usually open up with, boy, how about that weather, folks? Geez, aren't you glad you're in here? It's -10 outside, and it's like, and what? Maybe I enjoy that. I mean,
yeah, it seems to be like this foregone conclusion that you would prefer to be in a climate that's always perfect or whatever. But, okay, let's dispel this right now because we were talking about this today, Brian, you and me, off the air. And what I was saying was that this winter has actually been one of the snowiest on record. Boston got more snow than like any other year since like the 1860s or something like that.
It's fantastic.
Since the Pilgrims crashed on Plymouth Rock.
Yeah.
So Boston got a ton of snow. New Hampshire got a ton of snow. It's been cold. Like I don't know about you guys, but I've been here in New Hampshire. I've kept the thermostat on 60 degrees or even 58 at times because I just don't want to pay for the heat. And, I also read this thing at the beginning of the winter that said being cold is healthy for you. Like you increase
your... activates brown fat.
Yeah, you actually develop as an adult some brown fat, which is fat that just creates heat, that like burns the fat cells that burn fat, the molecule at the fuel, and create heat for you. And it improves your insulin sensitivity and it has all these health benefits.
Oh, there's even tests that like if you lived in a house or a room that was like constantly at 30 degrees or whatever, or something like that, you could like eat all day long and you could eat whatever you wanted and you'll be in fantastic shape.
Yeah, it's almost like this polar bear effect or something. So I read that and I was like, okay, this winter I'm just going to deal with being a little chilly. And you know what? I've got sweaters. I can put on 2 pairs of pants if I want to. Fuck, I work from home. I always say I dress for the job I want because I wear my pajamas most of the day. And I feel so comfy and it feels great.
Oh, yeah. I mean, if necessary, we can, get some body heat going on.
Absolutely. And I also read another thing at the beginning of the winter, too, that was like ways to beat the cold in the winter, even when you don't want to turn up the heat. And some of those ways that I found really helpful, some of those little tips or, dare I say, hacks.
Don't say hacks.
No, they're not hacks. I'm not a winter hacker or a cold hacker or anything like that. But some of the tips that I found really helpful in that article were there are these things that you can buy or you can just make your own out of like a sock. You just fill it with like rice or beans or like oatmeal and maybe some good smelling herbs like lavender, dried lavender or something. And you can put it in the microwave for like 2 minutes. And it creates this pillow that you can drape over your shoulders or around your neck or really any part of your body. And it just retains the heat and it keeps you nice and warm for for a few minutes, 20, 30 minutes. And so that was one of the tips. I got one of those and I've used it daily for the whole winter. It's been super helpful, relaxes my shoulders, really nice. And you can get your own through the Sovryn Tech Amazon link, by the way.
Sovryntech.com, left-hand side of the page.
Yeah. And then also another tip was to eat soup, like hot soup. Mm-hmm. So pretty much all day we're making tea, drinking hot soup. And it's been fine.
Oh, yeah.
And sleeping in a cool room, you just get such a good sleep. Like, I don't know how to describe it, but it puts you into this really restful slumber and you get recharged from it. And like during the winter, I stayed cozy. It was really nice to be in the house working while there's snow outside, knowing I don't have to commute anywhere, being with the person I love most in the world, which is you, Brian.
Yeah.
Yeah. All day we just kind of hunkered down and I finished up a lot of like long-term projects that I had been working on. It was great. And so, yeah, this winter has been one of the coldest and snowiest that I've experienced, but I loved it.
Yeah.
And it was a great opportunity to reflect, to tie up loose ends, to do all kinds of things that like I was just really grateful for. And so I think that you can have gratitude and appreciation for any season, no matter what condition you're in. If you're already happy, you're going to be happy in winter, spring, summer, fall. And if you're not happy and you're in perpetual summer, it's not going to make you happy.
Yeah, that's a fact.
That's the real lesson.
That's a fact. At some point, I'm going to talk about that kind of subject because we've talked about this often, about, it's interesting.
Well, about the obsession of people moving, white people from Canada and the U.S. moving to Mexico, Costa Rica, Chile, Argentina, South America, warmer climates.
Right.
And then saying, oh, look at me, I'm so special, I never have to deal with the winter. And yeah, like if you're already happy and just that it's a little extra bonus not having to deal with the winter, good for you. But to say like, oh, I'm so glad I live in Costa Rica because all you poor saps having to deal with the winter, how do you live? Oh, and you're also tax slaves and whatever else. It's like... that's pretty presumptuous. Like maybe some people like this type of climate.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm a huge fan, even as a kid, And,
the other thing is, I don't want to sound racist with this, but I kind of have a rant about this, okay? Because we live in New Hampshire. It's like, let's be honest, it's 99% white people.
Yeah.
There's very few people of color here, okay?
True.
Except in Hanover, where there's Asians and Indians and a few black people, I suppose. But, that's because of Dartmouth. Because they purposely try, they want diversity in their staff and their students. So they try to hire people from different countries, different backgrounds, and they do it and they really do it. But I've seen so many people, white people, black people, everybody, who just struggle in the winter. They get depressed. There's no other way to talk about it. And like skin color evolved. And this is the part where I really don't want to be perceived as racist, but
Oof.
There's the shades of people's skin and their hair and all their outer external features evolved because they were at a certain latitude and they had to have a balance between making enough vitamin D in the sunlight, which melanin kind of shields you from sunlight. So if you're in a climate with intense sun, you need more melanin in your skin to shield out the radiation from the sun and still make enough vitamin D. Versus there's something about folate in pregnant women. Folate is a vitamin that's super important for the development of the fetus. And if you let too much sun in, like you need the sunlight to make vitamin D, but if your skin lets too much sunlight through, it can destroy the folate. So there has to be this balance. And nature came up with skin pigmentation as a way to adjust, to fine-tune that balance between making enough vitamin D and protecting the folate levels. And so people, people with really light skin like us, they're probably most suited for living in northern latitudes just because they have the genetics to deal with the environment better. And like, you should live wherever you want. Okay, you should live wherever it makes you most happy.
Right.
But if me as an Irish person who never tans, always burns, don't have that gene, I just don't have the genetics to tan really, to develop a lot of color in my skin. If I were to live in a hot, sunny climate all the time, I'd probably be getting lots of skin cancer and sun damage, and that would negatively affect my happiness. And
Sure.
Same thing if you're really black. You're from you're African descent and you're super dark skin and you go and live in Scandinavia or like Nova Scotia or even New Hampshire, maybe there's some aspects of maybe you're just not getting enough sunlight for you and you're not going to be as happy. And that sunlight does affect mood and physiology, all kinds of aspects of physiology. So again, like I'm saying, I like diversity. I like having all different kinds of people around me. And I think you should live wherever you want to live. I think borders are imaginary lines. Like, fuck that shit. You should be able to go anywhere on this planet that you want. But maybe your genetics are telling you a message of where it might just be easiest for you to work with the environment that you're living in.
Sure. Bioregions aren't imaginary lines. Those are very real.
Mm-hmm.
So, yes, I mean, so really what you're saying is, you live up here because you just want to be around white people, right? I mean,
no, I'm not saying that at all.
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was all, just that black people were the descendants of Ham, Noah's son, and that he was cursed, and so that they're cursed. So
that's what they tell you in the Mormon church.
Yeah.
Well, and that's what they tell you in some Christian sects, isn't it, right?
Yeah. So, I mean, your explanation, I think, makes a whole lot more sense. But,
believe me, I would love it if there were just lots of Latina women walking around in this town.
Oh, yeah.
I would love it.
Yeah.
But
well,
it may not be the climate in which they are happiest.
Yeah.
So.
Either way, we should respect those opinions that black people are a curse. We would not want to. No, I mean, this is the thing. They deserve respect, apparently, because, their ideas are their ideas, regardless of the lack of scientific.
Or are you talking
evidence.
About respect the Christians' ideas?
Yeah. I mean, there's
there's some things that are just, okay, objective reality exists outside of our perception of it, and some things are just objectively crazy bullshit, and you don't have to respect them.
Right on. So
we were talking about PorcFest and the Liberty Forum.
All right.
Well, we were talking about the free. You were. I think I super interrupted you, and I'm sorry, Brian.
No.
For 2 hours about nothing again.
That's all right.
But you were starting to say about the Free State Projects has these two events, Liberty Forum and PorcFest, and you enjoyed being in the hotel at Liberty Forum, and you were still trying to kind of articulate why you liked what you liked about being inside this hotel.
Oh, I just enjoyed it more in general for, I don't know, just to my own taste. I'm not telling people what to do, but just to my own taste. I like the, first off, I love the winter, and I love the access to a hot tub that generally Liberty Forum allows for. This year it was in a new hotel, very nice hotel at that. The Radisson in Manchester. Before it was at the Crown Plaza in Nashua. Unfortunately, the hot tub was not working at the Radisson this year.
Yeah, we're cursed when it comes to hot tubs.
Yeah.
We just can't find a working hot tub wherever we go.
Yeah.
Or it's a dirty little secret of the hotel business that the hot tub is always broken. So you can advertise it on your website, but it's always broken.
Yeah. So, yeah, I like the atmosphere better.
So you went to Liberty Forum at the Nashua Hotel a couple of years, right?
Yeah.
So, okay, we should explain. PorcFest has been at the same venue for the past 8 or 9 years, I want to say.
Right.
Since maybe 2007, I think, was the first year they had it at Rogers. So, yeah, it's 8 years. But Liberty Forum has moved. So it used to be in the Crown Plaza in Nashua, New Hampshire.
Right.
This year it was in the Radisson in Manchester, New Hampshire.
Right.
Now, this is an interesting development. I don't know what the backstory is on that move. There's a couple of theories that I have. I don't know if you want to hear them. But regardless of that, they moved venues this year. And the new venue was really nice. Like, I actually loved that Radisson in Manchester.
Yeah, like I was saying, I loved it too. I thought it was a much nicer hotel.
Yeah, it had a bar inside, like a pub, so you could get food and drinks. And it had very nice rooms with sleep number beds. A big bay window, slanted. It was really beautiful. The room was spacious. It was clean. Like, I give it a 5-star review. Like, it was really good.
Yeah, other than the hot tub being
tub. Yeah,
it was really, really nice. The room was great.
They had a nice gym.
Yeah, the view. Yeah, the gym was nice. The view was nice. All of that was
staff
was
very
really
nice.
Great. Yeah, and
good place to have a convention.
Yeah, absolutely. And the area where they were holding it seemed to work pretty well. Now, again, we didn't really catch any of the talks, and we just kind of got to
talks.
Yeah, we just got to sort of talk to people there, and it was easy enough to run into everybody. If there's someone kind of you're wanting to see, I think you in many ways you had the opportunity to do that. And yeah, I don't know. Like, I don't mind being out in the woods. In fact, I love living out in the woods. But just I guess there's an overall comfort of the fact that, you can sit down. Like one night we were sitting down in the lobby. We were talking to Jay Noon,
and a bunch of other people.
Yeah, and a bunch of other people. Jay Noon has a very interesting story. He's kind of famous if you listen to Free Talk Live. So I'm not like, giving away secret information of any kind. And had a good conversation there, but I didn't have to worry about being around, a gigantic bonfire, with, I don't know, whatever.
With random people who would come stand under your umbrella.
Yeah. Or who would be like, hey man, you want to hit? No. I know this is going to shock you. Okay. But I actually don't want to hit, nor do I want a sip of whatever you're bringing with you. Okay. I say, hey, you want to go hit the range in the morning? I know it's going to shock you, but I actually don't like guns. All right. So there's just an overall, vibe, for lack of a better phrase, that I appreciate more about Liberty Forum than I do Porkfest. So
a little more civilized, right? Decorum and bow ties.
Right. Yeah, right.
No, just kidding. No, but I know what you mean. It's a little less.
Yeah, like, and people are free to do all that shit. That's fine. I'm just saying that it's what I like. Okay, I'm sure 99% of people would turn right around and say, "Oh, I love being around that bonfire." I don't remember what the hell I was saying, but I love being around that bonfire. So anyway,
the bonfire at Porkfest has a certain charm. I will say,
got a charm. Yeah.
But I appreciate the hotel atmosphere as well. So, okay, theories about why it moved.
Yeah, go for it.
I was thinking about this over the weekend that I was there, and I was like, why did they move? Well, one reason perhaps is that...
Well, all right, hold on. The official report from the 9/11 Commission says that it was to get closer to be closer to the airport. Or, I mean, the Free State Project, not the 9/11 Commission. Sorry.
Is that what they said?
As I understand it, that's what they said, is so that it was easier transportation.
So that sounds like a convenient bullshit story.
No kidding. No kidding.
I think, I'm just speculating here. I was not involved with the organization of this at all.
All right. I know what you're going to say. There was Building 7-Eleven, which is that 7-Eleven next door to the Crown Nashua. There really is one. And somehow, we don't know how, but debris hit this Building 7-Eleven and took out the building. And ever since then... And
all the Jews took the day off.
Yeah, and all the Jews took the day off. And ever since then, we had to, we had to move because that's what you're going to say.
Right. Yeah. No, actually, I was going to say, I wondered if the Crowne Plaza in Nashua was just some kind of an artifact. Like, they had it there for many years. First of all, there was no Liberty Forum in like 2011 or something, because the guy who was organizing it just dropped the ball and fucked it up, and there was no Liberty Forum that year. But every other year for the past like almost 9 years that I've lived here, they've had a Liberty Forum. And it was always at this Nashua Crowne Plaza. Now, maybe they got a good deal the first year, and then they were like, yeah, that sounds good. We'll just keep going back year after year. And then maybe they jacked up the price. I don't know. Or perhaps it was inconvenient for the speakers to fly into Manchester and then have to drive to Nashua, which is 20, 30 minutes away, and required pretty much renting a car or having some lackey Free Stater like give them a ride to the airport.
Right. Now,
not lackeys, they're great volunteers.
Yes,
The people I knew who gave rides last year was like Carolyn, and she's really cool.
She's amazing. Yeah.
I wouldn't want to describe her that way, but someone had to do the work of transporting them, whether it was the speaker themselves or whether that was somebody else. So that could be a reason. But the third reason I was thinking was that there was a big party that would happen every year. And it used to be the Sex, Lies, and Anarchy party that was organized by Antigone that would go on at the Quill. And the Quill is a private club for Free Staters in Manchester, New Hampshire. Or it's not all for Free Staters, but it's mostly Free Staters, and it's for Liberty people. Right. It used to be that you weren't supposed to talk about it, and now you can talk about it, apparently. But anyway,
Yeah,
It's a private clubhouse for liberty lovers.
Right. And please, make no mistake. It's not, even if you're somewhat of a celebritarian, you got to pay at the door. I mean, there's like this is no.
We paid at the door.
Yeah. There's no freeloaders into.
That's right.
Into the quill.
Who do you think you are?
Yeah.
We should have told him we know Jeff Berwick. That's a joke. Because
I know Jeff Berwick.
That's a joke because there was in Acapulco is Jeff Berwick's conference.
Which we still have that special to release at some point. Go ahead.
Oh, we didn't go to Acapulco. We went to Cancun and we saw Jeff Berwick there. Different story. But anyway,
right. The Cancun special. Yeah, go.
For Acapulco, Jeff sent out this FAQ, or he wrote this FAQ about like how to behave, and it was really weird. It was about like how to behave in Acapulco, and one of the Q&A points was like, well, the nightclubs get hard to get into. There's bouncers at the doors. You should dress really nice. And if you have trouble getting in, just say, Jeff Berwick, and they'll let you in.
Now, this doesn't work if you're trying to get into Mexico.
Right, because another guy got turned away at the border, apparently, for saying he was an anarchist. And why you would tell that to a border agent, I don't know. But
why
apparently
would
that didn't
matter
work.
to them?
Well, I guess in his defense, that guy didn't try saying, hey, I know Jeff Berwick. Let me into Mexico.
That would have been.
I
awesome.
wish he would have and got it on camera. But anyway, so there's this party that used to happen every year at the Quill, and people would be driving sometimes in the snow, sometimes late at night, sometimes probably intoxicated, from Nashua to Manchester and back to attend this party,
which is about 20-30 minutes, right?
Yeah, and it's so that's not an insignificant distance. And there was like a shuttle bus that went back and forth. But when you're at a hotel and you're kind of just like settling in for the night, it's like, oh man, I don't want to take a 30-minute bus ride to this place. Like that's annoying.
Yeah.
So I think that, and the irony of this all is that Antigone, who organized this party for like 3 years, I think. It went for like 2 or 3 years, and it was like a big deal. Like people were talking about it. Oh, did you go to the SLA party last night? Like she apparently left. She moved away.
Yeah,
she wasn't there this year.
Yeah.
So the year that they moved the Liberty Forum to Manchester, she wasn't even there to like enjoy her party, which I think I had thought she liked in the past.
Yeah. So that was kind of the theory, is that it was to have this be closer to this party. And so that, and so certain people must have been behind it, whatever.
Or just the organizers of Liberty Forum knew that this party was like the event of Liberty Forum. It was like a big deal. So they wanted the forum to be closer to Manchester so that people could go to this party more easily. But anyway, they did move it to Manchester, and there was a party at the Quill. But it wasn't the SLA party. It was the Rebel Love Ice Luge party, which I'm sure we'll talk about.
Yeah, and so I'll give this one little plug. The Rebel Love Show, which is run by Rob Matthias and Shire Dude, and it's a podcast. It's out there. So.
Yeah, I listened to a couple episodes. I never listened to it until this week when they were like, you guys should be on.
Yeah,
I had never listened to it until just recently. And I started listening to it, and some of it's really good. Like, I really like it when Anne, the Rebel Mistress, is on. Mm-hmm. She's got a great personality. And there were some cool things about it. So
they had Brett and Allie, Brett Venat.
Yeah, that was a good show.
Yeah. Yeah, of school.
I like this sort of casual conversation aspect. I don't know how much appeal it has to people who don't know those who are on it. Like, part of what I found so appealing about it was that my friends were on it, Right. Like, I knew the people who were on it.
It's important to have those kind of shows, to have those certain insider shows. I mean, every industry, every movement, every, kind of niche, wrestling has its dirt sheets that no one outside of wrestling fans would have any fucking clue what the hell's even on those, it wouldn't make any sense.
What is a dirt sheet, by the way?
A dirt sheet in wrestling is essentially, like a contraband information from backstage.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's a dirt sheet. And
it sounds like it could be one of those things like the Cleveland Steamer or like Dirty Sanchez or something, like one of those sex acts that nobody actually does that they just give these ridiculous names for.
Yeah, no, not that.
Dude, I got a dirt sheet last night. Bro.
Yeah, dirt sheet is not toilet paper. So yeah, so anyway, so I can appreciate those kind of shows existing. But
I think they're more widely listened to from people who don't live in New Hampshire.
Sure. Yeah.
Because they want to see what it's like. They want to know what the culture is like of people. Like, what is it going to be like if I move to New Hampshire and start hanging out with people who are free staters?
Right.
And that they can get those questions answered by listening to some of these shows. But then it creates a weird dynamic because then the hosts don't know that like these people are listening. And then people show up to things like Liberty Forum and they're like, oh my God, I know you. I feel like I'm so intimate friends with you. And you're like, who are you? I have no idea who you are.
Yeah.
And it creates this weird one-sided dynamic.
Yeah. No, it's true. It's something we do, they're not that.
That's the problem I haven't figured out how to solve in podcasting. I just
and I don't think there is any way to really solve it. It's just as long as both parties are respectful that's how the dynamic works. That's about the best you can do. And I've run into plenty of people that listen to Sovryn Tech or even a Sex and Science Hour that we used to do, or whatever. And
which we're gonna do again.
That's and they will recognize that and they'll make it plain that they're aware that's occurring, and that's really that's kind of how it can be solved. So, but anyway, so we went to the Liberty Forum itself. We didn't really go around, talk to the vendors or everything. We kind of talked to some people that we had. Okay. So we talked to some people that we know. That was the end of the sentence there. I'm terrible about that.
Now our timeline is getting all weird here.
It's true, but we really only experienced Saturday
late afternoon.
Right. Yeah. Because, well,
okay.
Anyway,
I'll fill people in on this. So Friday, we finish up our work for the week at like 6:00 p.m. Right. We decide we're going to go to this amazing Indian restaurant in Salem, New Hampshire, not Massachusetts. Salem, New Hampshire is almost like Massachusetts. It's incredibly civilized for New Hampshire. It's got two malls. Two malls.
All the stuff you could want. I think they even have like fiber running there. They have Fios.
Oh, man. I'm jealous.
I know.
And they have an amazing Indian restaurant that's actually run by Indian people. We have one in the Upper Valley, too, that's run by Indian people, Jewel of India. And they're good, but they're just not as good as Kashmir.
Right.
But I'll take Jewel of India because they're local. So
yes.
They're definitely good enough for me. It's really funny because this local Indian restaurant, Jewel of India, they have these like awards hanging on their wall when you go into the restaurant that say voted best Indian food of the Upper Valley in 2015, 2014, 2013, and it's going back for like years and years and years. And I always look at those and I'm like, there is no other Indian food in the Upper Valley. They're the only one.
Yeah.
So of course they're the best.
Yeah.
But no, they're really good. They're definitely worth a try if you're in Hanover,
absolutely,
New Hampshire. But anyway, so we wanted to go to Kashmir because they're great. We found out about it because one time we were flying out of Boston and we stopped there to get takeout on the way to the airport because it was sort of on the way.
Yeah.
And it was just the most amazing, delicious, comforting food before we left for this trip. And it left us with really fond memories of the place. So,
oh yeah. So we take every excuse we can to go there.
Yeah. It's kind of far away from where we live, but it's worth it. So every once in a while. So we drove down there and we get there. The place is packed. Like we had to wait for a table, which apparently according to them, that almost never happens.
Right.
But we sat down we got seated maybe around 8:30 and we didn't get our food until like 10. So it was already late, but we just, caught up, relaxed. And after we were done with our food, we headed back to Manchester and we got checked into the hotel. And then we kind of went and hung out at a party for a while. And we talked to some people and then we kind of called it a night. And then Saturday we slept in late, had some fun in the morning.
Oh,
We did some yoga in the hotel room. Brian did a workout. I did yoga. And then we tried to explore the hot tub, but it was broken.
Right.
And then we went downstairs. We got dressed, went downstairs, and started talking to people. And we chatted, talked to people. I don't know if we have to go into our private conversations, but suffice it to say, we missed all the talks, and we barely felt like we were there, even though we were like physically present from Friday night to Saturday night, but we felt like we didn't show up too much.
Yeah. So before we get into the party, there's a couple things I want to talk about here. And we'll go backwards. We'll start with people were, talking at the event, at Liberty Forum, talking with people. And that is, I'm kind of noticing, of all ironies, that these events, be it Keenvention, Liberty Forum, Porkfest, whatever, that it's in many ways like a family reunion. And I don't mean with our, family of origin, but with our family of somewhat of choice. It's really like that.
What happens if you dissociate from your family of choice? Is that a defuck?
Defuck. You've been defucked.
Instead of a defoo.
I like that.
Just kidding.
So, but it's often just that, and it's funny because we live nearer, or I mean, not, an hour away, however, whatever the distance may be, sometimes significantly longer. But I mean, we live near each other, and we never really like talk or see each other, that much. And so a lot of times I feel like these events are just like, okay, this is a time to not go catch talks or anything like that, but it's time to just catch up with,
first
all
things first. Like, I'm already an anarchist. I don't really need much.
Yeah, I suppose there's not a whole lot of convincing to go on, right?
Yeah. So and you can get that from podcasts and videos too, but the real thing you can't get is in-person interactions with other people.
Yeah. I mean, and this isn't like a new statement. Most people recognize that a lot of these, that conventions are either for networking or fucking. And, well,
we did both.
Yeah. So that's right. So anyway, I mean, it's not like I'm saying anything new, but just that's my kind of perspective. And I enjoy it for that. That's okay with me. We had great conversations, throughout the whole event. So, but I want to back up even further to where, going to get the Indian food in Salem, New Hampshire, because see, and I don't know if people know this about you and I, but as late, we've been on a somewhat of a different diet. It's still paleo essentially, but we only eat once a day.
Intermittent fasting.
Yeah. Late at night, we only eat dinner, and sometimes it'll be a large dinner, but we only, it's intermittent fasting. We only eat dinner. I mean, and
late
I think
at
people
night
would love to hear about it.
Okay. Yeah. Let's talk about that.
Sure.
I'd love to. One thing you said though, late at night, a lot of times it'll end up being late at night, but it's not my intention to eat late at night.
Right.
My intention is to eat dinner around 6 or 7 o'clock.
Yeah.
And then not eat again for another 24 hours. But usually what happens is like I'm doing voiceovers and I'm like, I got to get back to this client before 5. I told him I'd get back to them by the end of the day, which isn't really the end of my day because my day starts later than 9 a.m. But like usually I'm working on voiceovers and I'm like, I just want to finish this one thing up before we start dinner. And then we're like, oh shit, well, we want to work out before dinner. Usually we try to work out before dinner.
Yeah.
So we're like, okay, let's get a workout. And then we're like, all right, well, we can just squeeze out 20 minutes. And we're really hungry, but we can manage a 20-minute workout. And then a 20-minute workout turns into like a 45-minute workout, which is great because you're doing more than you thought you could. And all that you need to do is say, okay, if I can make it through 20 minutes, I'm just going to start. And then you let it take off. But anyway, so then it's like 8 and then we have to cook dinner.
Right.
So it takes a while to decide what we're going to eat and cook it up. And
we're generally watching Star Trek The Next Generation. At least right now it's The Next Generation.
Yeah, we're rewatching the whole series and it's been awesome. So then it may take an hour to cook dinner. And then by the time we actually eat, it's sometimes 9 or 10. So
Yeah. So, but it's an interesting, and generally we do want to, we work out. I mean, it's anywhere from 20 minutes to an hour, depending on the day, how long we work out or whatever. But intermittent fasting, I mean, this is not necessarily new. In fact, it's in many ways trying to hearken to some evolutionary biology.
Yeah.
But it's something that's getting touted. A lot of people, it's becoming kind of popular, I guess.
It is. It's getting touted, and the only caveat to that is that there are lots of people out there like Stephanie Ruper, who I would really like to meet. Actually, I'd like to do more than meet her.
I was going to say, how would you like to meet her?
But she has got this awesome blog called Paleo for Women. We actually have a lot in common because I think she actually also has a PhD from Dartmouth. And maybe she lives in Boston area or something like that. So eventually I hope to meet her. I think she's not in the country right now. But anyway, she's got the Paleo for Women blog. And she says that women should not do intermittent fasting because it will put your body into a starvation mode and it'll fuck with your ovaries and your estrogen and progesterone will get all screwed up and you might like stop ovulating and stuff like that.
Okay.
And you don't want that. So she says don't do it, or it might mess with your thyroid hormone, your hair will fall out and things like that. And I certainly believe that could be true.
But
for
you
me,
do it anyway.
Yeah, for me, maybe that is true a little bit. I haven't experienced any disruptions to my cycle while I've been intermittent fasting, which is great. Maybe that means my body has enough reserves to do it without a problem. I'm not like super low body fat or anything. Maybe that just becomes a problem when you get really, really ripped and lean.
Right.
And I don't have that. So maybe my body's fine with it. But for me, the thing that I find is, people may not know this, but when I was a child, I was overweight and actually probably into the obese category. I was very big. And I think when you are a child and a teenager and you go through puberty and you're overweight, there's a set point or something in your brain, hypothalamus, whatever, that wants to be at that higher weight, that says, yeah, this is the correct amount of body fat. It should be up here. Whereas maybe that's more than a healthy weight. And so also combined with some of the eating habits and the habits about when to eat, how much to eat, that kind of thing,
right.
Feelings, not really connecting, like emotional eating stuff that I learned from my parents growing up. I just have trouble. Like I could just eat and eat. Like I could easily overeat. And most people have that problem. Most people in American society, I don't know if it's the culture or the portion sizes or what, there's always ongoing debate about that. But somehow in America, in American culture, it is made very easy for people to overeat. And I live in American culture, so I'm affected by that, as well as having the past history of overweight and of not really learning the healthiest eating habits growing up. So for me, intermittent fasting and eating one meal a day is a great way to help me control how much I'm eating. And it's not like it's a starvation thing at all or anything like that. It's just that I get to make a deal with myself and sort of say, well, okay, I'm only going to eat once a day. And that's easy because I'm busy all day. I've got a lot of stuff to do. Sure. And I forget about it. Which
is pretty key because you got to be distracted. To
yeah.
be able to
Distraction is the number one key to intermittent fasting to making it work. Because otherwise, if you don't have anything to do, you will be thinking about food all day.
Yep. You'll just constantly and you'll be talking about it all day. I mean, it'll just be crazy. Yes. Go ahead.
So you might even be posting pictures on Facebook all day of your food. No, I'm just kidding. Brian hates it when people post food pics.
Oh, do I?
But so like for me, if I only eat once a day, I get to feel like I'm eating a huge meal. I get to eat like 2,000 calories in one sitting, and I get to feel like, oh my God, I just ate like so much. I'm so satisfied. Yeah. I feel great about this. And then like I'm happy. Then I'm not like, oh, I can still eat more. Maybe I have room to eat more today. I think I will. I'm like, nope, this is the one shot that I get today. And I'm going to eat this big meal. And I feel like I did eat a lot because I did. It's just that I ate it all in one sitting. So it feels like I ate more. Well, in actuality, I'm eating less.
Right. Yeah. So it definitely plays on the whole idea of like diet restriction where you're not dealing with the depression of, oh man, I'm only eating this little plate. I'd love to have more or whatever.
Yeah. It doesn't feel it doesn't feel restricted,
Right.
Some people do intermittent fasting differently, where they might have like an eating window. So for instance, they might be able to eat anything they want, but only for these 6 hours of the day. So between noon and 6 p.m., they will eat lunch and dinner, but they have to restrict their eating to that window. So it keeps them from eating too much and snacking outside of it. Some people like that. Some people like us do one meal a day,
Yeah.
And it's very interesting because, like, I used to be a really strict low carber, and I still do eat pretty low carb.
Yes.
But I find that if once a week I want to have some potatoes or whatever, or maybe like some fruits or sugar or like whatever, carbs, even sometimes rice, although I don't do particularly well with rice, so I try to avoid it. But
Right.
if I must, once a week, eating once a day, it's no big deal. It doesn't cause you to gain 10, 5 pounds, even 1 or 2 pounds, really. If you so I guess what I'm saying is that you may have a little more flexibility as long as you're not like allergic to the foods you're eating. Like if you're allergic to gluten and you eat bread on your intermittent fast, it's not going to go well for you. But
Right.
like if you eat a few extra carbs during intermittent fasting, your body's more likely to handle those better because you've been, tuning your insulin sensitivity with that fast for the
Right.
past 24 hours.
Right. Yeah. So, I mean, the essential idea is you want to eat within like an 8-hour window per day, right?
Well, not
Or
necessarily
4 to
8.
6.
Well, there's different theories about that. So
Okay.
you can, if you want to, figure out what you're interested in, if you're thinking about doing this for yourself, check out Martin Birkin's blog, Lean Gains, which he talks about intermittent fasting combined with like weight training to get really low body fat and that ripped kind of look. So he recommends like an eating window between like 4 to 8 hours. And for women, he says longer, like 10 to 12.
You're right.
But for guys, he says like 4 to 6 or something like that. Then there's, oh God, what is that guy's name? Eat, Stop, Eat, Brad something.
Mm-hmm.
I'm terrible. I'm a terrible paleo. I forgot his name, but he's got the book called Eat, Stop, Eat. That is a great book about intermittent fasting as well. And Mark Sisson also, of course, has intermittent fasting resources. So yeah, there's a lot of stuff about it online. I think Eat, Stop, Eat describes a bunch of different approaches, but I think he's more on the side of once a day, one meal a day.
Right. Something else we do a couple times a week is kind of carb load, right?
Yeah,
Which
we might
is-
have like a one day a week where we eat more carbs than we normally do.
Right, right. And that kind of, there's a lot of science behind this. Actually, Mark Sisson, he talks about it quite a bit where, it kind of gets your metabolism reset, and it allows you to actually, though it would seem antithetical to this goal, it actually allows you to lose more weight.
Right.
Yeah.
So the idea behind it is that you're manipulating the hormones. So if you have one day a week where you eat maybe more food than you normally do and also more carbohydrates, what your body is going to do is synthesize some fat, and it produces a lot of leptin. Leptin is a hormone that signals to your body or to your brain from your body that you are fed, you are well fed, you have enough energy reserves. And that boost in leptin lasts you several days.
Right.
And so over the next several days, you actually eat less.
Right.
And so, but you don't feel deprived and you feel more satiated if you have that once a week kind of carby cheat day, if you want to call it that. Now, I will say about cheat days, it's very easy to let a cheat day or a cheat meal turn into a cheat weekend. And that's what you need to avoid. And that's why some people have a lot of trouble with them, because once they have that one taste, they want more. So
Yeah.
you really have to be on the ball about getting right back on your normal diet after you do that. So
Yeah, I will
Yeah.
say definitely like the day after a cheat day is tough because like
can be, yeah.
you want to eat like that way again, and so that's definitely a hard part. But anyway, so that's why, like going to the Indian place and we were kind of waiting. Normally I don't mind waiting, but like it was getting like 8, 9 o'clock.
we were
whatever.
ready to gnaw our arms
so
off.
hungry, because of the way we diet.
Oh, and we were like smelling the curries and like
God, yeah.
seeing other people get their food, and we were like, oh,
Yeah.
torture.
So, yeah. But anyway, the next day,
just one more thing about
Yeah, please.
intermittent fasting.
Please.
So One thing I wanted to mention about the eating window versus just the 1 meal a day thing is that if you're new to intermittent fasting, a second thing,
All right.
it's easier to do if you eat sort of a lower carb, high fat diet because fat is more satiating and it's going to last you longer.
Right.
You know, everybody knows that if you eat eggs for breakfast, let's just say if you're a breakfast kind of person, if you eat bacon and eggs for breakfast, you are less likely to feel hungry by lunch than if you eat like a plain bagel for breakfast.
Right.
You know, so like protein, fat, and there's actual studies to show this. Like if you eat the same amount of calories for breakfast, all carbohydrates versus fat and protein, the protein and fat satiates you way longer. Like people just eat way less at the next meal when they've had a fat meal versus a carb meal. So it works better if you do low carb. I will say that. The thing about the eating windows is that if you're new to it, if you've never done intermittent fasting and you want to try it, the easiest way to get into it is by starting off with a wide eating window, let's say 12 hours. So like you can eat between noon and midnight, right? And then every week, just shorten that window by a couple of hours. So then the next week you can eat between noon and 10 p.m. The next week you can eat between noon and 8 p.m. or whatever your preference is,
Right.
until you're down as low as you want to go. And people have different goals for it too. Some people want to lose fat. Some people just want to try it for an experiment. Some people want to just, be able to get through their whole workday without being distracted by taking a lunch break, which is, it's very helpful for that.
Yeah,
I will say.
Definitely.
Very helpful for that. So, bottom line is see what works for you. And I think it's been great. I'm planning on continuing doing this. I really like it.
Oh, I don't see any reason to stop. And it's cheap. Like it's cheaper.
Yeah.
To eat this way. I mean, by a long shot. I mean, you're cutting out, at least one, if not 2 meals a day. I think you really do end up eating less overall. Yeah. I will say that in the past, I've done intermittent fasting 1 meal a day, and I've maintained my weight on it, and I haven't gained weight, but I haven't lost weight. And I think that's because, it's so easy for me personally to overeat that I can just consume a lot of calories, even if it's in one setting. So I've actually started tracking calories too, like how much I'm actually eating and trying to keep it within a certain range. And I have been losing weight the last 3 weeks that I've been doing it, like 7 or 8 pounds. Yeah.
So,
Same here.
Get packed on a little bit extra this winter. Not like I have a lot to lose or anything, but it's just kind of vanity.
Yeah.
Vanity thing. But it's working.
Yeah.
You may have to combine it with actually, I like counting calories because I'm more in touch with reality. I feel like I'm touching down with reality more often,
Right.
Like, because there are all these studies that show that humans are just terrible at estimating how much they ate. Like, if you don't actually keep track of it, most people will underestimate how much they ate by about a third. So they will actually eat a third more than they thought they did.
Right.
And so I feel like writing down what I eat, which I only have to do once a day because I only eat once a day, that is helping me get a healthier sense of how much food my body actually needs to function.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't do that, but I can definitely see the benefit of doing it. And certainly the systems you use make it very easy.
Yeah. I've been using Chronometer software.
Right. So, so anyway, that's great. I don't know if I don't think we ever really talked about intermittent fasting before on Sovryn Tech, so I'm kind of glad to get that out there.
Right on.
You got 2 people here that'll certainly say, hey, this stuff works. Of course, I just caught a story today that a woman who's 104 years old says for the past 40 years, she's drank 3 cans of Dr. Pepper, not diet, 3 cans of Dr. Pepper a day.
I call bullshit on this. Well, the first thing I said when I heard her story was, is her name Aunt Millie? Because that's the whole thing about Aunt Millie stories. Like, my Aunt Millie is 95 years old and she's smoked 2 packs of cigarettes a day since she was 16. It's like the Aunt Millie story is the personal anecdote that defies a scientifically proven thing in health,
Yeah.
So and people will use it to justify, well, my Aunt Millie smoked 2 packs a day and she's 95. So therefore, smoking doesn't hurt you.
Right.
And that's totally not true. It's an anecdotal thing, N of one, versus the thousands and millions of experiences of people who did the same thing and died a lot earlier and got lung cancer. So anyway, so the first thing I said is her name Aunt Millie, because she kind of seems to defy the ideas of health.
Sure.
But,
I mean, something can be said for anecdotes. If they're well documented, I mean, then it's just a little bit more than an anecdote.
Well, yeah, if it's something... I think anecdotes can be useful if it's something that can't be studied because there's just not a lot of people that thing happens to.
Right.
You know?
Right.
Like a case study, for instance, about somebody who's born with their, you know, there's a condition called situs inversus where like your internal organs are just kind of a mirror image. Like your heart is on the right instead of the left, your liver's on the left instead of the right. Like it's all crazy.
Right.
So like case studies, because there's not enough people who have that. It's super rare. There's not enough people who have that to do like a big randomized controlled study. But case studies can be helpful because that's the only example there is around, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and certainly, you know, there's some things that are just, you know, kind of, you know, anecdotal in a way. I mean, a person gets struck by lightning twice. You know, that has occurred. In fact, I think it's even more than that at certain times. It's certainly not something where we want to do to people in a lab, you know.
Yeah.
We're not interested in, well, maybe some people are interested in that, but anyway.
Well, feeding someone 3 cans of Dr. Pepper, or not of Dr. Pepper every day isn't something I would recommend anybody do. But this lady has done it to herself.
Right.
And the second thing I said after is her name Aunt Millie was, did she like run out of Social Security checks and do a product placement deal with the Coke company? Because not the Koch brothers, the Coca-Cola company, because like that is like a great advertisement for Coke products.
Yeah. So, wow. Yeah. You know what? In fact, I don't even know how we got to that story, but anyway, we went to, we
Sorry.
went, no. I went on that tangent. So, yeah, let's move on to something else. So, all right, Saturday, you know, after we're talking
at Liberty
to people
Forum,
at Liberty
we're
Forum,
back at Liberty Forum now.
At Liberty Forum, talking to people. We're done with that. It's getting around 6-7 o'clock. We're getting hungry. So we go to actually our favorite spot, even though it's in Nashua, because it's our favorite spot because Liberty Forum used to be there. So it used to be just down the street to go eat at this place. But we go there and, you know, it's a Chinese place. Yeah. And
oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so we go there, fantastic food. And
yeah, we wanted to relive the experience from last year.
Yeah.
At Liberty Forum. So we actually went back to Nashua. We went to this place, Lotus Flower, right?
Yeah. Lilac.
Shit. Yeah. I always say Lotus. I must be like, I'm kind of embarrassed at that because it sounds kind of racist. Like,
yeah,
like, oh, it's Asian. It must be lotus. No, it's lilac.
I have black lotus, the best.
I don't get the reference, but
Conan the Barbarian. Yeah. Anyway,
got it.
So, yeah, we can reenact that later.
So we went to Lilac Blossom. We had just like an intimate dinner. Like we socialized a lot.
Yeah.
And then we took some time together and just chilled out together, you and me. That was nice.
Yeah, that was nice. And
then we went to the ice luge party.
Right. After that is when we got back to the hotel, and then we find out, you know, hey, what's going on? Is everybody going to this party now? And we got there. We went to the Quill. I guess we got there somewhat early. I don't know. And we just, you know, found...
We didn't get there that early. It was like 10:30 by the time we got there.
Yeah, it was like 10 or whatever. But I'm just saying, people said to us that we were early. You know, I don't know what that means. But
that's because they're too cool to start their party before 10.
Yeah. I mean, I certainly saw like quite a few, you know, more people show up than when we were there, but I didn't feel like the place was packed. Of course, the Quill has multiple levels. And so maybe everybody was elsewhere.
I couldn't tell how many people were there because we walked in. We stood in one spot for a few minutes and it was like in the doorway. So it was getting kind of crowded. Right. And then you know, honest to goodness truth, I'm not used to wearing shoes. And I had been wearing shoes that weekend and my feet hurt.
Yeah. You just wanted to sit down.
Not only was I wearing shoes, but I was wearing like heel shoes, like boots with heels on them. And I was like,
Yeah, they weren't made for
God
walking.
damn it, my feet hurt. So that luckily they had just installed a bunch of couches in the Quill. So we found a couch and we figured, okay, well, the people we want to talk to will find us. And they did.
Yeah. I mean, we talked to Davi,
Brett and Allie,
Brett and Allie, yeah,
Constance,
and
Zach Harvey.
Yeah, I got to talk to the Harveys.
Yeah. No, so, Josh wasn't there. I didn't see him.
Right. We got to catch up with him a little bit at Liberty Forum.
That's what I was thinking. I didn't see Josh at all that weekend.
Oh,
you saw him?
Yeah. Him and Marcus and others were talking in the hallway. At
okay.
the hotel.
Well, I totally missed him. I just remember talking to Zach, but I don't remember seeing Josh. And I actually thought it was weird that they weren't together. And then I was like, stop it, Stephanie. You're thinking of them as a unit. Don't do that.
Oh, geez. I just got an email from Josh. He just heard you say that. He's really, oh no.
He's pissed?
Yeah,
Shit.
Oh man. This is terrible. How did you even hear this? It's not recorded live. Anyway, yeah. So that was nice. Good conversation to go around, and we were there till the fucking time shift happened.
Yeah, that was daylight savings bullshit.
Yeah, we were there till
we were there until 2, and then it became 3.
It's 3, and it's like, what the hell? Man.
And then it started to feel like 3 too, and it was like, God damn it.
Yeah, I've been wanting to, because I have a lot of great evidence compiled about the atrocity that daylight savings time is, or that the time changes, not necessarily daylight savings time. It can, what they need to pick one and run with it.
Pick
okay?
one.
Yeah.
I agree.
So, but I have some pretty interesting thoughts on time zones and all that stuff in general. But you know what? Every podcast I listen to, everybody's complaining about it, and everybody's admitting this has to stop. And I'm really, really happy that that's happening. This is the first year I think I've ever heard where people have just been unanimously saying this time shift is shit. The daylight savings time, it's crap.
I agree that that's good, but since when do politicians who are responsible for implementing this shit anyway, when do they listen to people? People are complaining about marijuana being illegal, and it's just starting to, they've been complaining about it since the 1970s. And
Sure. Well, I guess my hope is
just starting to change in some places, and yeah.
Yeah, well, some of these people are so mainstream that I think that they kind of reflect, they all get letters from the Central Scrutinizer Office. And, and so I think it may be a portent of what's to come.
You think? So wait, let me get this straight. You're saying that because
I'm saying that the mainstream news all gets the same. They get a proverbial dirt sheet in the morning.
Talking points from the government.
Yeah,
and that includes daylight savings day needs to go.
Right, and so they have to. That's not really what I'm saying, but go ahead.
Well, they just over my lifetime since I've been an adult, I remember back in 2007 or 2008.
Ooh, that was a long time ago. No.
Well, it wasn't. It was 8 years ago.
Yeah.
But I remember when they changed they changed the date at which the clocks were to be changed. They moved it up by a few weeks.
Right.
Because it the rest of the world, okay, including Britain and Australia, and I know this because I had Skype calls with people there, and they fucked it up because they didn't fuck it up. The government fucked it up because the time was different, and we didn't have the 5-hour difference. Now we had 4 hours instead. So it fucked up a couple of interviews that I had, bottom line. But anyway, most of the world changes their clocks at the end of March, but the U.S. government 7-8 years ago decided in their infinite wisdom that they were going to change it to the beginning of March so that we have another month on daylight savings time or something like that. Now you could say this is the last breath of a dying empire, but for now it's changed, and it causes all these fuck ups.
Oh yeah.
Because we're just not in sync with the rest of the world. And then Arizona doesn't even change at all. So that sometimes the difference is 2 hours and sometimes it's 3 hours. And that comes out when you're on Ernie Hancock's show and you don't know if you need to get up at 6 o'clock or 7 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
Because he's on at 9.
Yeah, exactly. No, Right. Yeah. So that crept up on us, which sucked. But the party, you know, we're there and we're just talking, but it was kind of strange in a way, because, you know, in the front of this like party area where these couches are, there's this ice block.
Yeah.
You know, and it says the Rebel Love Show on it.
At first, when I saw it, I wasn't even sure what it was. I thought maybe it was a piece of plastic with lights under it.
Yeah, because it was really I was impressed. It seemed to be holding its temperature it was holding its
that was the
solidity
thing.
really well.
It didn't melt.
Yeah,
and it was pretty much clear, like a piece of glass or ice, which is actually what it was. But it wasn't melting throughout the course of the evening, so that was unusual. And
I mean, maybe that's normal for ice sculptures, and I just don't know, you know, for quote unquote professional ice sculptures, and I just don't know, but whatever.
I don't know. Like, maybe if you have a big enough block of ice, it'll just hold its form, even if the outside temperature is like room temperature.
Right.
But it would seem to me like it should start to melt at some point, especially if it's out for hours. Maybe there was some kind of refrigeration system underneath it. I really don't know.
Could it be?
Or maybe
Extraterrestrials.
it was aliens come to the quill and put the ice luge there. But anyway, and it's in the shape of this like triangle, like an equal, like
and suddenly there were these Vimanas. They were flying around.
It was in the shape of a pyramid.
Now, I don't think Atlantis sank. It went up. Okay, those views expressed are not mine.
So it wasn't exactly a pyramid. It was like a isosceles triangle.
Sure.
Not an equilateral triangle, because that's the three sides are equal. So it's an isosceles triangle. Okay.
Yep.
And we were like, what is that thing? We couldn't figure it out until people started coming up, and like one person would stand at the bottom of it, and the other person would take alcohol and pour it down the top into the bottom, and it would drip into the person at the bottom's mouth. Now
no health risk there.
Now, this seems like a great way to spread convention crud. You know, I don't think alcohol is going to kill all the germs, but if your mouth is on the same block of ice.
I've been told that the way a lot of jet setters survive is because they are on a strict tequila diet.
Wow.
And,
take it from them.
Anyway.
But yeah, I mean, it seemed unhygienic to say the least. And kind of weird. Like, I guess I could see the concept. Like, you don't have to keep the alcohol cold.
Right.
You pour it down this thing and it turns cold by the time it hits the bottom. But isn't there like
you don't have any
residual
inhibitions? You're out of touch with reality. I mean,
and some of the people that were drinking off of this thing were like, yeah, bro, you know, like they were like full on frat boy material, like the way they were acting. So I wasn't exactly enamored by it in any way, but it was a little bit entertaining. I guess there was some entertainment value to watch.
It looked kind of cool.
Yeah, it was just unique. Like I'd never seen anything like that. And so we observed this. It turns 3:00. We go home, we go back to the hotel. And the next day, we get up. We had late checkout. That was nice. And we start making our way back to our home. And in the car, Brian's driving. I'm getting a little bit bored. I look at my phone, and this thread appears.
Now, let's be clear. This happens a lot.
Yeah, it does.
where you're looking at your phone, and then you wish to enlighten me as to what's going on in the world while I'm driving.
Yeah, because you can't like look at these things while you're driving. So, and I like to communicate. We like to communicate with each other. We share everything. We talk to each other all the time.
You know, before we get into this, somehow I get the sense this isn't like this with most people. Now, we've been together for years.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. That's why I said that, because most people don't do that.
Yeah, we've been together for years.
Yeah.
there's rarely, and we're not listening to music. We're not listening to podcasts. I mean, sometimes we'll have that stuff in the background or something, but we go on hours, multi-hour drives often enough, and we're talking the whole time. Like there's always something to talk about.
Yeah.
It's where, I think more the norm is somehow that people have these moments of silence, and there's nothing wrong with silence. I'm just saying that, some people do complain about this. Like we never talk. We never, you know what I mean? Like I hear that kind of thing. And it's nonstop. The conversation just never, ever stops. With us, and I love it. So anyway,
me too. Thanks, Brian. I love that about you too.
Yeah.
I've even heard some people say, well, once you get to know someone, you've talked about everything there is to talk about, and there's no more to know. And I don't agree with that.
Yeah, not in our world.
Yeah.
No
I'm constantly finding out things about you, like your secret meditation ritual that you do in the morning.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Anyway, that's an inside baseball thing.
Okay, yeah. So I meditate for, anywhere from 15 minutes to half hour every morning. And Stephanie had no idea that I do this.
I sleep more than Brian, and he does it before I wake up, and he never told me about it until like just recently. I forget if you told me or if I asked you about it. How did that happen?
I'm not sure how it came up, but it was ironic because a few days after, Brett released a podcast about meditating, and you're like, hey, he meditates too. What's going on here?
Yeah, I didn't know he meditated either. And meditation is one of those things that I just don't get. Like I do yoga. I guess that's sort of similar for some people, but I don't really understand meditation.
Well, if anyone wants me to talk about it, Brian at ZomiaOfflineGames.com or BitMessage, go to SovrynTech.com. Plenty of ways to get in touch with me, and I'll talk about it. But
you said today that it's like the opposite of multitasking. It's like zero tasking.
Yeah, I call it zero tasking.
That made the most sense to me out of any other description I've ever heard.
Yeah.
Like most people aren't really able to explain it well, which I don't get, because if they're doing it, they should be able to explain it. But
well, the feeling is kind of all right. I see your point, and I agree. There's something to be said for if you can't explain it to an 8-year-old. You really don't have a grasp of what you're doing, right?
Yeah. Well, it just triggers me because it reminds me of when I was in synagogue when I was a little kid, and all these people were like faking these religious experiences.
Right.
And I thought there was something wrong with me. I didn't get what I was doing wrong, that I wasn't having the same experiences as them. But then I realized that they were all just bullshitting.
Yeah, they're bullshitting you. There's no doubt there. So there's something to be said for that. But some things, I do believe that there are concepts that we have just never created the words for. And there are some things that are very tough to explain. I do believe that there are that, but meditation's not one of those things. I think if someone can't explain it, it's because they are, trying to turn it into this ethereal, spiritual.
They're trying to seem special.
Yeah.
Like they know something that you don't know.
Yeah.
That bugs the hell out of me.
Right. And anytime someone tries to turn something into some kind of spiritual nonsense, just total turn off. And it's like, no, you're full of it. But anyway, so I do that. If people want me to talk about it, I can talk about that another time. So we're driving in the car and we're talking as we do. You're looking at your phone and you suddenly see this Facebook thread that is just this piece of epicness. And so if you would like to talk about that.
Yeah. So I don't have the thread pulled up in front of me right now, but I did, let's call it a theatrical reenactment of this thread for you. And it went something like this. This guy, I don't even know this guy, but some guy, so let's call him dude.
We'll call him guy.
Posted in a group of people that go to the Quill. I didn't say anything about this last night because I'm a true professional and I was just trying to hold my shit together and make ends meet. But these guys, Rob Matthias and Andrew and Shire Dude, scammed me out of this ice luge. I had it created for them, and we had a clear verbal agreement that they were going to pay us. They were going to pay me and my friend, who's an ice sculpture artist, $150 for the ice luge. And we shook hands on it, and it was very clear that they were going to pay for it. And then the day before, they backed out after I had already had the ice sculpture made, and I tried to act like a gentleman at the party, and I didn't say anything about it until now because I was just being professional, unlike them. But I was a slave during this party. I was working the whole time as a slave because they never paid me my $150 for this ice luge.
And he also complained that the ice luge was supposed to be near the food it was supposed to attract because he was cooking.
Oh, yeah, right. It was supposed to attract people to his food.
Yeah, it's supposed to be a draw.
But they moved it to another area, and he was complaining about that, too. So not only did they shaft him for the ice luge fee, and they backed out of their clear verbal agreement, but they moved it away from his food. And then they jumped in responding, and they're like, wow, what the fuck, man? I had no idea anything was wrong. We didn't have an agreement that we were going to pay for the ice luge. And besides, it was fucked up. There was something wrong with the design. You said it was going to say Rebel Love Show, and we never told you we would pay for it before you ordered it. You just ordered it and then expected us to pay. And so they were having a quibble over what the agreement actually was. And who knows? I don't know what was true. I'm not taking a side in this bullshit.
No.
But it was very entertaining.
Yeah, to read it.
Especially because it involved this item that we had never seen before. This. And at one point, Shire Dude jumped in and goes, "Newsflash, I didn't move to New Hampshire to scam people out of a $150 block of ice." I'm all done responding to this thread. And it was just so dramatic. So funny.
Yeah. And then, other people, Johnson is jumping in and saying, it's oh, if you didn't have a written contract, it doesn't matter, and it's not
unless
real.
You wrote it down, it never happens.
Yeah.
And then someone else was like, "Johnson, you always post the most hateful bullshit on this group. You have no value as a human being." It's just I'm
unfollowing you.
The train wreck was just unfolding. Yeah. It was just a shit show.
Oh, but it was entertaining as hell.
And for the drive fast.
Yeah, the way you read, you're reading it and you're putting.
I'm honing my acting skills.
Yeah, obviously you're a professional voice actor.
I do audio drama for a living.
So you're just mimicking how the way these people talk and the intonation and everything, and it was so good, and I'm just dying laughing. We're both dying laughing the whole way up. And fortunately, everybody seemed to agree that it was pretty ridiculous. That the whole argument was
so ridiculous. Yeah. I mean, yeah.
And something just real quick. Obviously, whatever, how all that all went down, like you say, not taking a side. I definitely don't fall in the camp of, well, if there's not a written agreement, then there's no agreement. I think that, that's a whole, contractarian stuff. And I don't buy that.
Especially for short-term things. But I mean, I can also really see the perspective that sometimes humans just don't have a good memory. I've had a number of situations where I was going back and forth with a client. I talked about doing an audiobook for them or some kind of voiceover. And I talked to the client on Skype, and we reached some kind of agreement that I was happy with at the time, and they were too, but I couldn't remember what it was. Mm-hmm. And I had to look back through my email to see if we had written it down. And there was one guy who did, after we talked on Skype about doing his audiobook, he sent me an email right after that, and he said, "Just for future reference, this is what we discussed. This is the rate that we talked about for the audiobook. I will pay you this much, and you said you'd be available to do the audiobook at this date." And at the time I was like, well, duh, we just talked about that. But then months later, the project still hasn't started because it was basically a book that he was finishing up writing.
Yeah.
And I was thinking just the other day, man, I'm really glad he wrote that down, because I wouldn't have remembered anything that we talked about, and it would have been a wasted hour that we spent on Skype or however long we talked.
Sure, but he wrote that down for himself, I mean.
But it helped me that he wrote it down.
Well, good.
And I thought it was ridiculous at the time, but then months later, I was glad that we had a record of that conversation.
Yeah, understood. I can see that, the points to that, slips in memory and things of that nature. But this notion that you have to have a contract for every little goddamn thing.
Yeah, for a $150 block of ice.
Yeah, come on.
Maybe for a $3,000 audiobook.
Right.
But not for a $150 block of ice.
Yeah, I mean,
Sorry.
if anything you learn, okay, well, then this person doesn't have a good memory. I'm not going to deal. You learn. I mean, and sometimes learning comes with a cost. And well, that's life.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There's no need to suddenly like enforce a whole bunch of shit on people just because sometimes life, hands you a bad deal.
Yeah.
I mean,
communication too. Like it seemed like there was a big communication breakdown in that issue. Now I'm putting on my pork therapy hat again, but it seemed like there was just a so the guy who was upset about the Rebel Love Show guys not paying for the ice luge had the ice luge had been made by his friend. And he basically like ordered it. Like it's like when you have someone make you a cake, you have to put in the order in advance. So he put in the order in advance without confirming before that with the Rebel Love guys that they still wanted it for the party and they were going to pay for it. They had talked about that like a couple weeks before or months before.
Right.
And like it's always a good idea before you commit to that path, of making the ice luge or whatever. Like if I had talked with a client about doing a voiceover and they said, okay, I think I'm going to want you to do this in April, but here's the script now. It's ready, but just hold off until April 1st or something like that. I would send them an email the week before and say, hey, I'm just checking in with you. Do you still want to do this?
Right.
Is this still the final script? Have there been any changes since then?
Right.
Like I would make sure before I put in the work to deliver the product that was still the agreement and that nothing had changed, because there's always changes at the last minute.
Yeah, absolutely.
But he didn't do that. And then also the other guys, the Rebel Love guys, maybe they didn't clarify with him well enough that they didn't want to pay for it or whatever. Maybe they changed their minds. It just seemed like
communication breakdown.
Yeah, and when these dramatic threads happen, everybody involved looks bad.
Oh, yeah.
It's really hard to get involved with one of those without just coming out. When you wrestle with a pig, you know what they say, everybody gets dirty, right?
Yeah. So, but another point that came up during that thread, during that whole, in the entertaining way you were presenting it. But one of the other things that people were talking about, and this happens all the time, and this isn't necessarily something new to talk about on Sovereign Tech. I've talked about it before. But you get all these people that start saying, there's too few of us. We can't be having these petty squabbles. I mean, we got to be able to we got to get along and all this. And I totally disagree with that whole line of thinking.
Yeah.
Get this stuff meted out before there's hundreds of thousands of us. I mean, like get this stuff figured out then, right here and now. I just don't buy the idea of the kind of the big tent idea, or the idea that, we got to stick together and all of this. It all just smacks of things that I don't see have ever historically worked.
Yeah, well, like people are going to have issues when they deal with each other. They're going to have conflicts. And if those conflicts are basically swept under the rug or suppressed before they can be resolved, they're going to come up later.
Sure.
Like my mom always used to say, I think I said this the other day off the air, but my mom always used to say, like, like deodorant, antiperspirant has this aluminum stuff in it that basically like blocks the pores in your armpits. Right. So that the sweat can't come out.
Right.
She always used to say, if you do that, like the sweat is going to come out somewhere on your body. It might not be your armpits, but it will come out somewhere.
Yeah.
And I always think of that example when I'm thinking about like people suppressing feelings and conflicts, because like it's going to bubble up somewhere. Even if you whack-a-mole and squash this conflict down about the ice luge, it's going to come to a head later on some unrelated issue. So like you might as well talk it out now.
Yeah, absolutely.
And saying, well, we have to get along because there's so few of us, that doesn't help resolve the problem. Like if someone said that to me, I might say, yes, I agree. I'd like to resolve this conflict. So let's talk about it now and try to get it resolved. Right. Because I would like to get along, but we can't get along as long as there's this active conflict.
Yeah, absolutely. But, again, the way, interpersonal interactions occur and all that stuff. Yeah, I mean, get that worked out now. All these ideological battles that everybody's complaining about, get those worked out now. I just don't buy the idea that everybody needs to be on the same page, working together and all this stuff, I think that's a recipe for disaster. But anyway, so
yeah, who decides what page everybody, quote, has to be on,
right, Right. Absolutely. Yeah.
Usually that's said by people who can't justify their position rationally.
Yep.
Like I always think of those people who used to call us on Free Talk Live and say, well, you have to have a government or you have to vote because this, and they had no reasons for it, but they would just precede it with, well, you have to do this. And I would always say, why do I have to?
Yeah.
Or no, I don't.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't have to do anything I don't want to do.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. I don't buy unifying. I like the whole idea of unity. I think it's bullshit. And in fact, you know what, like of all ironies, one of the things I love about Alt Expo, their presentations, is that they allow for just this wide range of ideologies to discuss. Somehow it all gets off very peacefully. I mean, and it's all, but I mean, whatever, it gets meted out, and they are the most serious of issues a lot of times. And so, that's the thing. I mean, things need to constantly be, compared and contrasted. I mean, liberties, or philosophy, whatever phrase you want to use, and that philosophy is a science. Science is a crucible, where you get to the bottom of things. And so you've got to have the, you got to have that infinite diversity, infinite combinations, right? To use a Star Trek phrase there.
Yeah. If we were people who believed in unity at the sacrifice, at the expense of all other things, we wouldn't be like libertarians. We'd be statists, being patriotic nationalists.
Yeah. I mean, and I always say that if everybody's like on the same page and everybody's on board, if nobody disagrees in a movement or in a community, I mean, you've got a cult on your hands.
Yeah.
You don't have a community or you're a movement or anything that's vital. So when these things happen, I mean, I don't want to say I revel in people being, perhaps frauded, who, whichever way that goes. Again, not
defrauded.
Sides.
You mean?
Yeah, defrauded. Sorry. I don't revel in anything like that or in anybody being harmed. But I revel in the fact that people are still trying to figure it all out. Because I think we have a lot of answers, but we don't have them all. There's still a lot to learn. So
indeed,
yeah,
there's still a lot to learn.
Yeah, which is the beauty of these conventions. I mean, lots of people, there was a guy there at Liberty Forum who I might actually get him on Sovereign Tech, where he talked about pacifism. And this is a guy that works for Google.
No. He didn't talk about pacifism. He talked about passivism.
Passivism?
Yes. So the title of his talk was passivism as opposed to activism.
What is passivism?
So it's the opposite of activism. It's instead of going out and trying to change the world, it's working on yourself instead.
Well, I think that's a fantastic idea.
Yes, I think that's even better than pacifism.
Passivism.
Yep.
See, I wouldn't. Here we go. I wouldn't use that word because it's just too easy to, get it confused.
Yeah, I agree with that. But it's a clever title if you get it.
Yep. Yeah, it is a hook.
Yeah.
That's for sure. It is a hook. So, yeah, okay. So anyway, but that's good. A lot of these varying ideas and all that stuff, even if I completely vehemently disagree sometimes with some of them, I'm glad that it's happening. I'm glad that events like Liberty Forum occur and that there's a venue for these ideas to get meted out. But I mean, overall, I don't know how much longer you want to go. We're at about an hour 45.
Yeah. Well, we ended up talking for 2 hours.
It never fails. I was thinking this would be a short one, but
yeah.
Anyway, did you have more you wanted to talk about with Liberty Forum?
No, that was pretty much the extent of our weekend. I mean, it was a quick weekend trip, but I really enjoyed my time with you, and I felt like I got some social time. Before we went to Liberty Forum, I was really feeling like I wanted some more social time because I just hadn't really been getting out much before that.
We don't really,
for the last few months over the winter.
Right.
I was hunkered down in the house, working on stuff,
right? But
not much social time.
yeah, I can understand that.
So yeah, that was nice.
Yeah.
Did you want to talk about something with there's two things that we could talk about. One One is the Free State Project and our attitudes toward it.
Mm-hmm.
And the other one is, which we kind of already talked about, but the other one is the women, which I think you wanted to talk about.
Oh, we could talk about the woman thing another time. I mean, there were so many. I don't know that I need to. I did want to talk about it, but I don't know if I need to toss my hat into the. How's that phrase go? Toss your hat into the ring.
Into the gender ring.
Yeah.
Into the birth control ring.
Well, there was
the
so
ring.
There were so many people talking about it this past week. On blogs and social media about why aren't there more women in the liberty movement, blah, 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 blah. Anyway, so I don't know if I need to go down that road, but I mean, we could talk if you want to for a little bit. We could talk about our feelings towards the Free State Project.
Sure.
I'm open to that. If you want to open it up, or I could start talking, it's up to you.
Well, I feel like I've done a lot of the talking, and thank you for having me on your show, by the way. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk. I really appreciate it.
The listeners have no problem with it. They want to hear you. So
well, cool. I hope not. I think they want to hear you too. And I do have somewhat of a bad podcast habit. Like when I first started Pork Therapy in 2009, which was my first podcast ever, I did it with a co-host, Mike, and it's embarrassing. I was stepping all over him. I kept interrupting him. And someone even tried to come on the show and ask me questions to try to help me become aware of it. And it went right over my head. And I feel so embarrassed about it now. But I realize I have gained the self-awareness about my interruption habit. And I try to keep that awareness and not interrupt you too much, Brian.
Oh, no, you're great. You're a pro. So.
Oh, there's a certain balance you have to strike because sometimes, especially on live radio, like on Free Talk Live, interruption was a necessity if you wanted to get heard. And if you couldn't just sit there and say nothing because it's the other hosts are just going to keep talking. And it's whoever is more aggressive, whoever just elbows their way in gets to talk. And if you want to talk, you have to be aggressive and elbow your way in. And it's kind of I don't know, it's not really the style, but you can't have dead air and you can't have it's hard to communicate to somebody when you want to jump in, and everybody always wants to talk more than there's time to talk. So yeah. Anyway, thank you for having me on your show. Yeah. Why don't you start out talking about the Free State Project?
Well, so the Free State Project, I mean, I'm assuming people that hear this know what it is, but if you don't, the Free State Project is a project to get 20,000 liberty-loving individuals to one geographic area to work towards the goal of achieving liberty in their lifetime. Did that all from memory. But of course we're on Free Talk Live, so we had to say that a lot. But anyway, and so, I get the idea. I think it's an interesting idea. The reason I moved here was not about, what's the tagline? Whose goal is to work towards a government that's
Oh, so the Free State Project, are you talking about the statement of intent?
Yeah.
Okay, so there's a pledge that you sign when you, quote, join the Free State Project, which is, I pledge to move to New Hampshire within 5 years of this pledge reaching 20,000 signers, if all the other people do too. And when we get there, we will work to create a society where, I think it's work towards the creation of a society where the maximum role of government is the protection of life, liberty, and property.
Right.
And so they carefully worded that to include both minarchists and anarchists.
Right. Yeah. So
the maximum role of government is to protect life, liberty, and property.
Right. And the minimum role could be it doesn't exist.
Yeah.
And so that's certainly, I wouldn't want to speak for you, but I think that's where we're both coming from, is that just government doesn't exist.
Oh, no, I'm a total statist, arch statist all the way. Go Hillary 2016.
Yeah.
Ew, I can't believe that just came out of my mouth.
It's going to get taken out of context.
No, I'm just kidding. I am totally an anarchist.
Yeah. So... I am interested in that, in no government. And, I was actually mover 966. I was a little ticked off. I wanted to be 666, but whatever. I was late.
Turn that 9 upside down.
That's all I have to do. And then everything's fine. But anyway, and so, I didn't come here planning on political action. Or anything along those lines, maybe some degree of activism, but no political action of any sort. And yeah, the thing is that even in, and I've been here since October 2011. You've been here since 2006, right?
2006, yeah.
Yeah. Lately, it seems like, and I've even had people, I've talked to some people that have been here for a while as well, who have said, a couple of years ago, nobody would be into voting in the Free State Project. Nobody would be doing any of this, political bullshit. He says, but now everybody's like, that's the thing to do. We're all going to go vote. We're all going to go run for office. We're all going to go do this.
I call bullshit on that. I've been here for almost 10 years, well, almost 9 years, but it'll be 10 years in June 2006. And there have always been politicos here.
Sure. Well,
from the very beginning.
Yeah, I think he was talking about a pretty select, more of your diehard activist types. So he was talking about the passionate people that perhaps change their mind a bit. But in any case, I agree with you. I think there's always been politicos here.
There have. It probably just depends on who you hang out with, because there's so the Free State Project, the size of the pledge is 20,000 people, but that won't be triggered. The move won't be triggered until there are 20,000 signers. Right now, there's like 17,000 signers.
Yeah.
So it's almost there. It's like 80% of the way there.
Right.
But some people have moved to New Hampshire early because they don't want to wait for 20,000 signers. They want to do it now. And apparently there are over, what is the current number? It's like over 1,200 people who have moved here and have told,
be even higher.
and have told the Free State Project about it. Because I imagine there are quite a lot of people who just don't want to be on a list,
Yeah.
and that's kind of gone stealth.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, in fact, actually, when I came here, like there was a lot of people that like they get a big welcoming party and all this stuff. I showed up. I didn't run into a single Free Stater for 2 weeks. Like, I just wanted to check it out. I didn't need a welcoming party. Wasn't interested in any of that, whatever, and I don't really necessarily have a point in that, but other than to say that there's a lot of people who are here that we don't even know they're here.
For sure.
That's the deal with that. So I imagine the numbers above 2,000. Yeah.
You were triple black stealth anarchist.
He's a Fed.
Sneaking into New Hampshire undiscovered.
Yeah.
Hiding from your ex-wife.
Oh, jeez. Anyway.
Well, there might be some truth to that.
Yeah. So, So, the thing is that the Free State Project itself seems to very much, more so than I really recall, be very, very much involved in politics, even on a larger scale than just New Hampshire.
Are you talking about the Free State Project organization official?
The organization itself.
Okay.
Seems to be very, very, like they're just doing all kinds of weird things. Like, I think it's almost anathema for them to be a nonprofit.
So I think they're not a 501c3, which is the typical kind of nonprofit that like charities are, non-political charities. I think there's something called like a 501c4 or something, which is a PAC or like a political education organization or something. Like they are some kind of political organization, but they can't like promote specific politicians or candidates, I think. Okay. They just have this like educational political message.
Right.
That they can do. It's really kind of weird, but they are some type of political nonprofit organization.
Okay. So regardless if this is run by a bunch of capitalists, minarchists, or anarchists, they should be saying, no, we are for profit, because who the fuck isn't? You know what I mean? I mean, that should be like, that just should be it. And so
it is kind of weird when people who are so interested in profit like make non-profits, right?
yeah, it doesn't make any sense. And it's all there seems to be, and again, I enjoy the fact that there's a lot of differing opinions. I really do. But the prevailing thing in the Free State Project seems to be working within the system, and that very much turns me off. In a very real way. And
let's differentiate between the Free State Project, the organization, and the Free State Project, the community, because there is some overlap between those. Like there are a lot of people in the community who have a lot to do and run the organization, but then there are people in the community who have nothing to do with the organization.
Right. Which I have, as far as I know, I have nothing to do with the organization.
No, me neither.
So, but, that all that said, and maybe I've said it before, I have other issues with it. Like, I mean, it's, I could get into like the philosophical debate of if you move into like, if the bulk of the people that already lived in New Hampshire, if they want social services, if they want social programs from the government, if they want government, who are we to come here and take that from them? You know what I mean?
Who are they to force us to participate in their social programs, though?
Sure. No, of course. Yeah. I mean, but that's what I'm saying. It's a debate that's not being had. I mean, I think everybody, comes in like charging like heroes, saying, we're here to save you, and they don't want to be saved. So then what are you doing?
That's true. A lot of people don't want to be saved.
Yeah. And I mean, and that's, I don't even like using all that language, but there it is.
Yeah, the problem is there's no place on earth where is someone supposed to go who doesn't want to live under a government, under the thumb of a government?
Well, sure. Or what if you're an ethnic group that's been around for thousands of years that just can't get a country to live in? What do? You kick everybody else out of somewhere and you live there.
Yeah, well, that didn't lead to lasting peace or a good solution either.
Israel's doing great. Are you kidding me? Anyway.
Yeah. Well, I think it's a good
sarcasm.
I think it's a good comparison. Well, right? What's the libertarian homeland? There is none.
Yeah. And you can say, well, who hit first? And, they're forcing us, so we got to do it. And then it becomes, well, then did the Jews get kicked out of Israel? I mean, like all these arguments go into some crazy places, but in the liberty circles, they're not even being had, and I have, I mean, and I didn't even want to get into that, but there it is.
Yeah. The Connecticut River is going to turn into like the West Bank pretty soon over here.
Oh, jeez.
I shouldn't say that, but yeah, I mean, I definitely see the comparison.
Yeah.
I don't have a good solution for it. I wish it was possible to form pockets of autonomous communities, permanent autonomous zones, like you've talked about, intentional communities.
Yeah. Yeah. That's really it. Go ahead.
Yeah. So I guess I have a lot of thoughts about the Free State Project. First of all, I love it here in New Hampshire. I'm glad I live here. I love living here.
I wanted to express that in fact, there's a tagline that goes, it's the Texas of the North. I love that. It really is in a lot of ways. I mean, I love New Hampshire. It's beautiful. It is easily, and I've traveled the world pretty good. It is easily one of the most beautiful places on the planet. I want more liberty-loving people here. Don't confuse me. I want them here. And it is a beautiful place, and it has everything I could want. Maybe it doesn't have everything that everybody else wants, but it has everything I could want. Hills at my back and Price Chopper in front of me.
Yeah, as far as my subjective individual preferences, which I admit are formed probably by growing up in the Northeast,
right,
Massachusetts.
Yeah, same here, New York.
It has everything I like. It has the seasons. It's got beautiful leaves in the fall. It's got skiing in the winter and mountains, at hiking in the summer. Beautiful summers, springs, not too hot, not bearable in the winter, not too cold like we just talked about. It's got everything, and I like where I live. My ideas about freedom, I guess like a political freedom, have changed a lot over the past 9 years, though. Mm-hmm. Like when I first got to New Hampshire, I was starting out a very unfree personal life, starting out medical school.
Right.
And I sort of thought in my mind, oh yeah, I'll move to New Hampshire and I'll get involved with politics on the side when I'm not in med school. And first of all, that didn't really work out because you have no free time in med school. Second of all, it didn't work out because politics is a fucking sham. It's rotten to the core. And I quickly found that out. And I had a couple of years after that where I was like, well, shit, what do I do now? Because I'm here, I live in New Hampshire, but I don't want to participate in politics. And I also don't want to go to jail and get arrested like these people in Keene do. So what do I do? And for a little while, I didn't do anything.
Yeah.
And then I started getting interested in the personal side of freedom, which I had never really explored before. And that's when I started pork therapy. And that's when I started, I guess, like quietly discovering some things in my own life that helped me be freer. So for instance, like sexual freedom, I started like listening to all these sex positive movement podcasts.
I'm glad you did.
And just started learning about different types of sexuality and, different things that I could try and trying some stuff and having fun. And I also started like thinking about psychological freedom, like learning about like childhood experiences and how they shape people as adults and trauma and how that affects people and communication and cognitive biases, getting in touch with reality, sort of cognitive behavioral therapy type stuff, becoming as rational as I could, thinking about my childhood and my past and trying to heal from things that had hurt me. And that took years, and it's still going on.
Right.
That's a journey that really never ends. But I'm really proud of how far I've come on that. And along that journey, somewhere, I realized I was on a very unfree career path and I needed to make a change.
Right.
And so after 7 years of grad school, I did. And it was one of the scariest things I've ever done in my life, but I did. And I started my own business. And now 2 years later, it's almost exactly 2 years after I left, my voiceover business is thriving. And I was just saying to you today, I love my job.
Yeah.
It is so much fun to just work whenever I want to.
Right.
And, if we want to take the night off and go out to dinner like we did tonight, we can. Yeah. Yay. And like not to feel the stress and pressure of working on someone else's project and having to be someplace when someone else said jump. And like, there's just so many ways in which I feel freer and happier in this career. And yeah, like I'm really pleased with that. And so now, almost 9 years after I moved to New Hampshire for the Free State Project, my ideas about what freedom would look like in my own life are almost totally different than they were at the time.
Okay.
I was almost sort of thinking I'd be like a Ron Paul, like the female Ron Paul.
Nah.
Ron Paulette. Like a doctor who works from the inside to change the corrupt medical system. And, that is a fantasy. That is not going to happen. There are just some systems, most systems, in fact, that you can't change them from the inside. If you try, you're going to go crazy.
Yeah. Or you'll become a part of it.
Or you'll get stuck to the status flypaper and you'll become a part of it.
Yep.
And that's what I learned about medicine. That's what I learned about politics. So
how do you feel about the Free State Project then? I mean, expressing I'm with you on all that, and I'm so proud of you. I've been able to see so much of this evolution, and it's a privilege for me.
Thank you.
And so, but I mean, what is that? What is your outlook now on the Free State Project?
That's a great question. I think I still feel a little ambivalent about it. I definitely don't want to participate in politics.
Right.
I'm not really interested in what the politicos are doing. I don't even follow it, and I don't watch the news, and I don't keep up with the New Hampshire news, especially. So I don't really care about that. I mostly just am trying to be as free as I can in my own life in terms of my job, my living situation, my relationships, my financials, my finances, and all that kind of stuff. So I'm focusing inwardly instead of outwardly. That's the biggest change. Mm-hmm. As far as the Free State, the community, I will say that it feels good to never be lonely.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like if you live in New Hampshire and you don't have any if you don't know any libertarians where you're at, that situation will change if you move to New Hampshire.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Like, I remember living in Massachusetts before I moved here, and I just didn't even know any other libertarians. Right. Now, granted, this was before Facebook. This was before the internet, really, the social networking. This is before Twitter. But I felt really isolated and lonely because nobody was on the same page as me politically, philosophically.
Yeah.
So I would end up dating statist guys and like converting them. My longest boyfriend in college was he was kind of like a punk rock type anarchist, mm-hmm. but I got him like reading Mises and stuff. But I had to do that, I didn't know anyone who was already there.
Right.
I met a few people. I used to write articles for Lou Rockwell, but like most of those people were just really libertarian brutalists or vulgar libertarians.
Mm-hmm.
They were not focused on the personal aspects of freedom.
Right.
And it didn't help me consequently in my development personally, knowing those people. So I still felt lonely.
Yeah.
So if you're lonely, you can fix that by moving to New Hampshire. You will have people to hang out with. But the thing about that is once you get out of a situation where you're totally isolated, you start to raise your standards a little bit, right? And actually my standards raised for who I want to be friends with and relationships with raised quite a bit once I had access to more people who met the bare minimum standard,
Right.
And you will find that you don't like a lot of people. Like the other weekend, we were at Liberty Forum. We were talking to Carlos Morales,
Mm-hmm.
and he just moved to New Hampshire about a year ago. I think like something like that. He said he estimates that he likes about 5% of the community, the people here. But I think that's about right for me. Like,
I'm sure he said that at some very public venue at some point. So.
Yeah. I mean, I think he was talking about people he really, truly connects with.
Yeah.
Like people he'd want to be like their good friend, not just their acquaintance.
Sure. But, scientifically, I'd argue you can't do more than that. You
right.
know what I mean? Like, that's
if there's
just not
1,200
possible.
people here, shit, I don't even know all of them, let alone have a chance to get to know them.
No, I don't even want to know all of them.
No.
I mean, like, that doesn't make any sense. So,
Yeah.
I want that, core group of about, 15 to 50 people or whatever. But anyway.
Yeah. And I think that could be easier to find here because you just have a big pool to draw from.
Sure, absolutely.
And there are some really good people in that pool. But there are also, I will say that there is value to having acquaintances,
Yes.
Just like if you need someone to, water your plants while you're out of town, if you need someone to like give you a ride somewhere, if you need someone to cook at your party, if you want to buy like real maple syrup from some farmer, like those are all things you can get from the Free State community that don't require you being best friends with the person.
No,
You know them. You've seen them around.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, this is the beauty of, and there's so many people that are like anti-label or anti-ism or whatever. And, that's something I don't really buy. I don't really get it. I'm not for that, because it's a shorthand, especially in New Hampshire, to, what you can expect. And, I mean, it's not always necessarily true, think about the ice thing, but, it is a shorthand to where, okay, this is an acquaintance. This is somebody that, kind of can understand where I'm coming from, where if I want him to mark down the sale as a gift instead of, the actual amount, because it's so I don't get taxed or whatever, they can appreciate that where I'm coming from. So, that's good. And I mean, and really in such a small geographic area like New Hampshire, it creates a shorthand, for life. In general, when these people are around you, that like you said, it allows you to grow even more. Just being around people that are even at the most base level by your standard. I'm not saying that they're base level people. I'm just saying everybody's got different standards. So
yeah, and of course, just because someone is part of the Liberty community, that does not mean they're a good person.
No.
That does not mean they even share your values.
No.
They could be very different from your values.
Yeah.
That does not mean that they're trustworthy. That doesn't mean that they're going to be your friend.
Right. That's why I was very clear to say it's a shorthand for understanding.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a guarantee of virtue or anything, but just that, like maybe they know some of the lingo.
Yeah, it's just that it's a starting point.
Yep.
And then you can figure out where to go from there.
Right.
Whether you don't want them in your life at all, whether you want to be an acquaintance, whether you want to be a friend, whether you want to be a best friend, a lover, a good friend, whatever.
Yeah.
But at least it's a starting point and an icebreaker. And in a world where a lot of libertarians are, I'll say they have trouble with social stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Because I certainly did, before I moved here.
Mm.
And I certainly still do sometimes. But libertarians are not exactly known for their social skills a lot of the time. It will help with that a lot, having this community around.
Sure, absolutely. So, I mean, do you have any other thoughts on the Free State Project that you wanted to get out?
Well, I guess the high points, if I'm going to sum up that conversation, one, I like it here. I plan on staying here for the foreseeable future.
Same here.
Two, it's an improvement on where I lived before.
Yeah.
My ideas about political freedom versus personal freedom have completely changed since I moved here, but that's fine and it's a good thing, and I love it.
Yeah.
Growing in all different kinds of ways. And as far as the Free State Project now, I think the biggest value I see in it is the community.
Yeah.
Even though the community comes with caveats.
Sure. And I could go on and more, because I think a lot of people are feeling the Free State Project isn't, and I'm certainly not going to say it's necessary, but I think a lot of people make the claim it's not necessary anymore, because really all they were ever looking for was someone to talk to relate to.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of people are getting that online, and so they don't feel any need to move, because Facebook, which, Tell me all about that, how you're going to, crush the system and get all that freedom while using Facebook.
Yeah.
But, in your secret group that you set up on Facebook, you're going to change everything. Right. Anyway. So, but anyway, no need to get into that. I think that's a good note to end on, because, Liberty Forum, again, is all about getting people to come to the Free State Project, to come to New Hampshire. And I think that's, it's like you said, it's good with caveats, right?
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
anything else you want to get out there? Or are we smvoice.info, everybody?
Thank you.
Yeah.
smvoice.info. Yeah, it's funny because that's my business website. That's my voiceover website. And it always gets plugged in the most unprofessional contexts when I'm talking about the BDSM parties that I went to, and
it's smvoice.info,
like
not
SM
BDSM.
as in my initials.
Yeah, not as in sadomasochism.
Masochism.
All right, for the record,
Maccabees.
It's Maccabees.
It's Hanukkah.
Holy shit! Get the hammer. All right, no, it's it's 1 a.m. So relax, everybody.
Yeah, I think that's a good note to end on, and time for bed. By the way, check out Hypercronius. It's coming out soon. Brian's been working super hard on it.
Oh yeah. I've actually, thank you. Hypercronius is coming. There is a ZomiaOfflineGames.com. There's still that website I still have to do work on. I've just got tons and tons of work. I'm going to be so busy. I was going to be going to Libra Planet this weekend. Not happening.
You're skipping it because you're working too hard.
Yeah, just too loaded down. So anyway, but I hope everybody will enjoy it, and there will be a Hypercronius 2, as I said before, and Hypercronius 2 will definitely up the ante, I think, on a scale of 1,000. So, the first one, you're learning, you're figuring things out, and I've got a great story to tell with it. But I definitely plan on the following games to be, to really, really take it to the next level. So anyway,
I was just looking on. Okay, here it is. So I said at the beginning of the show, I was going to tell people where they could get the neck warmer that I use on Amazon. So go to the Sovryn Tech Amazon link and click through it, and then look for Herbal Concepts Comfort Neck and Shoulder Wrap.
All right.
And you will stay warm all next winter.
I can attest to this.
I love that thing. It's just so good. You put it in the microwave 3 minutes.
Yep.
You're
it's
good to
nice.
go.
It's soft. Everybody needs a soft.
Everybody needs a soft.
It's true. It is. It's true. Anyway. All right. So that's it. Liberty Forum was a good time for what it was, for what we experienced. And
we had fun.
Yeah, we had fun.
Let's just put it that way.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me.
That's what life's all about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me on your show, Brian.
Oh, anytime. So, all right. Carpe Lucem, everybody. There will be a regular.
Oh, come on. You can do more enthusiastic than that.
All right.
You're the Golden Stallion of the tech world.
Well, before I do the enthusiasm, there will be a regular episode of Sovryn Tech out this week. It's out every Saturday. I never miss it. Don't worry, even though this is coming out technically on Saturday as well. It will be out. Carpe Lucem. I'll see you on the other side.
You just experienced Sovryn Tech. Go to sovryntech.com, that's SOVRYN tech.com, and connect with us there. Find links from today's show and catch our podcast feed. Sovryn Tech is copy heart. Copying art is an act of love, and love is not subject to law. So please share the show however you like. Welcome to the evolution.
Testes. Okay, so that Alt 3-4 thing should be up, right?
Yeah, it should be up.
Not down.
Correct.
Okay, there, it's up now. Okay. If you would give me a test.
Testicles.
That's going to go on the end of the podcast.
You know, I was looking for new podcasts, and I found this like weird medicine podcast or something. And I was like, ooh, that would be a good way to keep up with my medical stuff. So I go to download the episodes, and the top one in the feed is sharp pins and needles feeling in scrotum and testicles. And you know what I thought? You know what the first thing I thought was?
What's that?
Ooh, he must have a sacral nerve impingement.
That's the first thing you thought.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And then I was like, I think I'll download this.
All right. Let's.
There you go. You got your blooper now.
I got my blooper for the end of the show. All right. You pretty much ready to go?
Why, yes.
Okay.
Let me check for sharp pins and needles. Nope, I'm good.
All right. We'll do a brief pause. And
brief?
Yeah, brief.
Boxers.
Not pregnant.